We talk about a lot of things on this channel, but this by far makes me the most uncomfortable. Hi, my name is Sydney, welcome back to my channel. You know, there are a couple topics that I have totally resisted talking about up until this point. Not because I don't care, but because it's a little bit like opening Pandora's box. Or like opening the floodgates. You know, you can just pick whichever idiom you like best. The point is, there are just particular topics that don't go down so well. And yet, Sydney, you're happy to talk about feminism and men's rights and transgender athletes. Okay. I also know that topics like climate change aren't particularly sexy. Unless, of course, you're this guy. I'm just kidding. Still not sexy. But as the discussion of climate change keeps hurtling along, I'm now beginning to have a massive problem with the way that kids are being caught up in all of this. Specifically, the way that they're being used as vessels to promote this agenda. And additionally, how adults and teachers and politicians have taken to scaring them into action by telling them that the world is going to end. And they're gonna be breathing like sulfur or whatever. I mean, real talk, I can only assume that's what they're telling them if this is how they're acting out in public.
We are on the outskirts of the biggest catastrophe humanity has ever faced, and our government is doing nothing!
I'm so concerned with the fact that if they're not gonna change anything, then what's gonna happen to humankind?
I'm one of the kids of the future, and I want to have a safer climate when I'm a grown-up.
I'm here today because I feel like it's crucial that we act now, because like we've ruined the planet so much in like the short amount of time, like in such a short amount of time, and we don't seem to be slowing down.
Scaring kids is super uncool, and if I was a parent, which I'm clearly not, I would be super unimpressed. But politics has a very long history of using emotion in campaigns to facilitate social change, and using children to do it. Take this ad, for example, from the 1960s.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 6, 8, 9,
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. These are the stakes. To make a world in which all of God's children can live, or to go into the dark. We must either love each other, or we must die.
Vote for President Johnson on November 3rd. The stakes are too high for you to stay home.
You don't need to tell me twice, nuclear winter is not fun. So what we're discussing here is not how real or unreal climate change is, because I'm not gonna do that, but rather how this entire movement is now characterized by the emotional manipulation of children, and by extension, adults. Let me remind you that these are the same kids who are being absolutely terrified out of having their own children because they're scared that they will also grow up breathing sulfur. These kids have eco-anxiety. It's not a joke, that is a literal term. It's basically where they're traumatized by the concept of climate change. That's right. Eco-anxiety. I mean, I just have regular anxiety. You guys are really you've really gone the extra mile there, huh? Attaching this anxiety to children means that eventually those children will protest. They'll feel a sense of urgency about this, and eventually politicians can leverage that emotional response into orchestrating change. Because, fun fact, using fear in a political context helps facilitate persuasion. Anxious citizens are likely to redirect their attention to a political threat and are more likely to shed partisan habits. So, like I said, essentially, children are being used as political tools to further a political agenda. And personally, that's not okay with me. In my opinion, Greta Thunberg completely exemplifies this. Here's a clip from her speaking at the UN from a couple days ago that recently went viral.
My message is that we'll be watching you.
Finally, at least someone will.
This is all wrong. I shouldn't be up here. I should be back in school on the other side of the ocean. Yet, you all come to us young people for hope.
Okay, hold on. Wait. hold on. Let me just stop you right there. I do want you guys to finish this clip uninterrupted, but I need to say this. Literally nobody goes to children for anything. I don't know, except maybe to feel frustrated or witness temper tantrums. I don't know. I mean, it's probably clear at this point that I am not a parent, but like, nobody wants your hope, kid. We're adults. We're fresh out of that. You know what gives me hope? Lower taxes. All right, let's continue.
How dare you? You have stolen my dreams and my childhood with your empty words, and yet I'm one of the lucky ones. People are suffering. People are dying. Entire ecosystems are collapsing. We are in the beginning of a mass extinction, and all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth. How dare you? The popular idea of cutting our emissions in half in 10 years only gives us a 50% chance of staying below 1.5 degrees and the risk of setting off irreversible chain reactions beyond human control.
I've watched this video now a few times, and besides the fact that it's totally lacking in any factual information, every single time that I do watch it, I feel really sad and uncomfortable. She's 16 years old, somewhere on the autism spectrum, and being paraded around like some sort of Joan of Arc figure, and I can't help but feel that this is exploitative. And really, guys, do not get me wrong. Kids are completely entitled to their opinions and belief systems. That's fine. They're also entitled to want to change things. Also fine. But it doesn't mean that we should put all of our eggs in the kid opinion basket. Because sure, there are 16-year-olds like Greta, but there are also 16-year-olds like this.
Oh, you foul. Put it back. Put it back.
You know, so there's that. But largely, the main issue that I have with all of this is that I would wager the majority of these children did not come to these conclusions on their own, especially when you consider the fact that they've been encouraged to join in on this discussion. The current climate change debate, no matter which way you slice it and dice it, is being led by children. But using kids as political props comes with its own unique set of issues. The biggest one that I can see, for example, is criticism. You can't criticize the child or their ideas because then you're just being a jerk that's criticizing a child. And of course, like I mentioned, all of this seems to center around emotions. And emotions play a huge role in political decision making. Doesn't that just fill you with confidence? Something politicians routinely do, particularly those on leftist issues, is trot out children every single time they want to drive home a point. Take, for example, the arguments that we've seen surrounding the ban on immigration from particular Islamic countries, or even press conferences. Politicians have given these speeches flanked by children. Think about every gun debate argument that you've ever seen or heard. They're often now characterized by "think of the children" or "kids shouldn't have to be fearful in schools." The March for Our Lives rallies were promoted and led by children, funded by adults but led by children. Now we have David Hugg. Thanks. Arguments about illegal immigration circle back to the children to divert the argument away from any genuine criticism. I constantly see news articles about the injustice of ripping kids away from their illegal immigrant parents. Think about the little girl who became the face of the migrant crisis here in the US, who ended up being put on the cover of Time magazine. Or the young Syrian toddler who drowned at sea, whose little body was used to push forward the argument about how we deal with illegal immigrants crossing the Mediterranean. Attempts to shame Trump and shut him down have also circled back around to children. Like in this ad, for example, that's titled, "Our Children Are Watching." Oh, really? Is that so? The children are watching, huh? Oh, that's interesting. Nobody cares, Sandra. So here we are, and climate change has become no different. And you really need to question the motives of adults who are not only scaring and brainwashing these children, but who are propping them up to push this agenda. In terms of Greta Thunberg, there is a lot of speculation about how she rose to fame so quickly, her background and why she does this, and so on. People have questioned at length how much her parents are orchestrating and pushing the things that she does, considering her mom is an opera singer and her dad is a director. What I think is worth noting here, however, is a book that her mother wrote about Greta and climate change. Greta starved herself for 2 months, and has also suffered from depression, eating disorders, and anxiety attacks, before finally being diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, high-functioning autism, OCD, and selective mutism. A lot of this behavior stems from her concern about climate change, and that fear is now shared by thousands of children around the world. A fear that is now being used to manipulate adults. There's a section from this particular article that I think makes a really good point. I want you to panic. I want you to feel the fear I feel every day, Greta said when she addressed the world's leaders in Davos. Given the child's history of precisely that, fear and panic, the adult response should perhaps not be "you go girl," but something considerably more cautious. So yeah, I'm not bashing children for having an opinion. It's great for them to explore ideas on their own, and it's fine when they're politically interested. What is not okay, on the other hand, is using children as political shields, making them fearful, and then using that fear to manipulate adults. It is not okay to turn children into political mouthpieces and then take advantage of their suggestibility and malleable opinions. In the end, rather than encouraging this, adults have a moral obligation to actually protect children and, more importantly, remain the adults in the room. So what do you all think? Is it okay for children to get political? Should they even be involved in this debate at all? And what do you generally make of kids being involved in the climate change discussion? As always, if you like the video, hit subscribe and the thumbs up button. If you want to leave a comment, feel free to do so. Just be respectful about it, and I will see you guys next time.